The clock in the station ticked past midnight as the last train of the night pulled into the platform. The sleek, black locomotive exhaled a cloud of steam, the hiss echoing through the empty station. A handful of weary passengers, eyes heavy with fatigue, boarded the train, each finding a compartment and settling into the uncomfortable seats. The train gave a low, mournful whistle before lurching forward, beginning its journey through the moonlit countryside. Sarah, a young journalist returning from a late assignment, was the first to notice something strange. As she settled into her seat, she realized the car was eerily empty. Apart from the conductor, who had wordlessly taken her ticket and vanished into the shadows, there seemed to be no other passengers. She looked around, expecting to see late-night travelers like herself, but the seats were all unoccupied. The train rattled and groaned as it sped through the night. Sarah peered out the window, her curiosity piqued. The scenery outside seemed oddly unfamiliar. Instead of the usual suburban sprawl, the landscape was barren and twisted, bathed in an eerie, pale light. Moonlight cast an ethereal glow over the desolate fields and gnarled trees, their branches like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. In the distance, a crumbling mansion appeared and disappeared in the mist. Sarah's unease grew. She left her compartment and walked down the corridor, searching for any sign of life. She found Nathan, a middle-aged businessman, who was equally disturbed by the strange emptiness of the train. "Does anyone else feel like something's wrong?" Nathan asked, his voice trembling slightly as they met in the dimly lit passageway. Before Sarah could respond, the lights flickered, and the train shuddered violently, throwing them off balance. The train came to a grinding halt in the middle of a dense, fog-shrouded forest. The silence that followed was suffocating, amplifying the sound of their rapid breathing. Sarah grabbed her phone, but there was no signal. The other passengers, a disparate group including a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Whitaker, a young artist named Jake, and a nervous-looking teenager named Emily, gathered in the corridor, their faces etched with fear and confusion. "We need to find the conductor," Mrs. Whitaker suggested, her voice steady despite the circumstances. They moved through the carriages, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. Each carriage they passed through was empty, a haunting reminder of their isolation. Finally, they reached the front of the train and found the conductor's compartment, but it was empty. Papers were strewn across the floor, and the conductor's hat lay discarded on the seat. Sarah picked up a faded map from the floor. It was old, the paper brittle and yellowed with age. She unfolded it carefully, revealing a series of unfamiliar names and strange symbols. "This isn't right," she murmured. "These places don't exist." The train jolted suddenly, the lights flickering again, and the doors to the conductor's compartment slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic set in as the temperature dropped, their breath visible in the frigid air. "Look!" Emily pointed to the window. Outside, spectral figures moved through the fog, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They floated towards the train, passing through the walls as if they were mere illusions. The air grew thick with a sense of dread. The passengers backed away, huddling together in the middle of the compartment. Sarah's mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. The train, the desolate landscapes, the ghostly figures. It all felt like a nightmare, but the fear was real. "Wait," Jake said, his voice breaking the silence. "This train, it's not just taking us somewhere. It's feeding on us. Our fear, our confusion. It thrives on it." The others stared at him, realization dawning. The train was a phantom, a vessel for lost souls, feeding on the terror of its passengers. They had to act fast or risk becoming part of its eternal journey. "We have to stop it," Nathan said, determination replacing his fear. "We need to find a way to break its hold." Sarah studied the map again, her eyes drawn to a symbol that resembled an hourglass. "This must be the key," she said. "We need to find this place and destroy whatever is powering the train." With newfound purpose, they made their way to the back of the train. The ghostly figures grew more aggressive, their wails piercing the air, but the passengers pressed on. At the rear of the train, they found a locked door, the symbol of the hourglass etched into the metal. Jake, an artist with a knack for solving puzzles, noticed a pattern in the etching. "It's a combination lock," he said, his fingers tracing the grooves. We need to align these symbols. Working together, they manipulated the lock, aligning the symbols as the train groaned and shuddered around them. With a click, the door swung open, revealing a small chamber with an ancient, glowing artifact at its center. The artifact pulsated with a dark, malevolent energy, casting long shadows on the walls. "Destroy it," Sarah urged, her voice urgent. Nathan grabbed a nearby fire extinguisher and swung it with all his might, shattering the artifact into pieces. The train screamed, a deafening sound that reverberated through the air. The ghostly figures dissolved into mist, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The train lurched forward one last time, then stopped. The passengers found themselves back on the familiar tracks, the moonlight now warm and comforting. They stepped off the train, relief washing over them as they stood on solid ground once more. The station was just as empty as before, but the air was no longer heavy with dread. The passengers exchanged weary smiles, their ordeal over. As they walked away, Sarah glanced back at the train. It stood silently, a dark silhouette against the night sky. She knew they had been lucky to escape, but the memory of the phantom train would haunt them forever, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edges of their world.